a good water quality feature. We also do quite a bit of monitoring to ensure that water is safe. We are in California. They like to have stringent regulations. So we're out there looking for over 100 different constituents. We look at the source, the wells. We look in the system, in the pipes. We even look in the homes for things like lead and copper, things that might come from your home plumbing materials. Those minerals that are in our water coat the inside of your pipes. And that's good because the water would dissolve them without it. So it doesn't dissolve the copper and the lead that might be in your plumbing materials. So at your tap, it meets those standards. We also do backflow prevention testing out there. If you've seen some of these out there, that's a backflow device. We're going through a rash of people stealing them for the brass. And that's about a $20 recovery of metals, but it costs us about $1,300 to replace it when they steal it. So if you ever see anybody stealing those, please call the police, let us know. We have been successful in catching several of them, but we're still working on that. We do quite a bit of reporting to the state as required, and we also do a consumer confidence report or a water quality report. It's on our website. We send it out to our customers. It shows everything that we test for, what we find, what the standards are, and how we rate. So that's an important information that we provide to our customers. There's also things you can do at home to protect water quality. Just using water wisely protects water quality. If you are over-irrigating your lawn, fertilizers can run off into the street and down into the sediments that then filter into the ground. So use your water wisely from that perspective. Don't use your toilets as a trash can. The water is there for organic waste. Organic wastes that go into our treatment facilities that can be cleansed and reclaimed. And that water is reclaimed, and we use it for the golf courses irrigations or possibly even future agriculture. So that's an important part of our water resources portfolio. So protect what you put in the toilets. Don't put your used medications in it. That used to be a long time ago, but you can crush those up, mix it with coffee grinds or cat litter and put it in your trash. Or drug take-back programs. You'll be seeing more and more of those. So you can return those unused drugs back to the pharmacies. And oil and grease. Our sewer systems, the oil and grease can, you can pour it down your sink, but then once it gets into our pipe, it's going to coagulate. And if that continues to happen, you can have plugs. And then that presents sewer that could rise into our environment and cause health issues. So render that great grease and oil at home, put it into a coffee can, and you can throw it in the trash. Those are all ways. Another thing is swimming pool water. Some people drain their swimming pools to the sewer, but that creates a slug of water that comes into the plant that it's not designed for. Plus, it can have high levels of salt that could hurt our ability to recycle that water. So again, the sewer has specific uses. Stick to those uses. So what is in water? H2O, 99.98% H2O. So that's a good thing. So that little sliver there is everything that's not H2O, just this tiny fraction. And in that sliver, over half of it is bicarbonate that I mentioned. And almost the rest of the half are these minerals, the natural minerals that dissolve into the water at very low levels, usually parts per million level. And then you have a few of these trace elements that get a lot of attention. And they're usually in the part per billion level. One drop in a 10,000-gallon swimming pool, your typical residential swimming pool, is 1 part per billion. And we now have equipment that can detect and measure that level of constituent in water. So now things that previously were not known were in water, we now know is there because of that increased technology. And I've listed a few of those things there. And you've probably heard about some of these things. Arsenic, chromium, they've been in the news a little bit, so we're going to talk a little bit more about those. And the regulations are what are used to ensure we're providing that water that's safe. And there's a process. It's a scientific process for setting these drinking water regulations. They do risk assessments. Ideally, if you had human risk assessments, those are the best, but usually they're using animal tests, usually rodents. And they do their tests and determine how toxic a constituent might be. And then they go out, and there's a list of a few candidates. So they have a long list of candidates. They try to identify the ones that might be a concern. They look at what's in the water by doing tests of the water. They'll come out with requirements that we test for these new things. And that's what we're always watching for. This is our state-certified laboratory here, and we have some of the best state-of-the-art instruments. This one does tests for some of the metals at very low levels, parts per billion level. Can we measure it? Is it feasible to even measure it at the levels that it occurs in water? And then can you remove it? Here's a treatment system in Glendale. Can you technically apply technology that you can remove the constituent? That has to be determined. And then they have to look at the cost. Is it economically feasible to remove the constituent, to measure this constituent? They can't just have a law that no one can meet because it's just too costly. And then it starts over every 6 years. They look at every constituent to see, is there new information, new risk assessment data, new technologies that would mean a new regulation. So that's the scientific process. And as a result of those regulations, we've had to start treating water for the first time. Before, come out of the ground, right into the pipes, just excellent. The water hasn't changed. It's the same water we always provided, but the regulations change. So here, in 1990, they came out with a new bacteria standard. There is no bacteria that is of concern that comes up out of the ground and that we put into the system. But out in the pipes, we can occasionally see coliform bacteria. Coliform bacteria is in our guts. It's on these chairs. We're constantly exposed to it. But it's an indicator. So if it's there, then there may be something else that's a pathogen. So that's why they use it as an indicator. As a result of that regulation, we started adding chlorine to the water, small amounts, that we provide out to our customers to ensure out in the pipes, it stays pure to our customers. And then in 2001, there was a revised arsenic rule. Arsenic occurs out in the East Valley, close to the Salton Sea, naturally. And as a result of that regulation, we had to do some treatment. We did quite a bit of research on that, and the regulation came out in 2001, and we were able to do all the research, build those facilities, and be in compliance with that federal standard by 2006. And it was a lot of work, but we were able to do it, and we learned a lot in the process. And now, chromium-6 is in the news. The state of California is the only state, and they're moving forward with a drinking water standard for chromium-6. And that's what I'm talking about now, to give you a little information on that important rule, because it is going to have major impacts for our valley here. Chromium has been regulated by the federal government for many years at a level of 100 parts per billion, all forms of chromium. State of California has had a more stringent standard of 50 parts per billion for many years. And we're meeting that. Our highest levels in this valley are about 20 parts per billion. So now this new regulation would be looking at the chromium-6 portion. And that's why the total chromium levels are set to be protective of chromium-6. So you heard about the scientific process. Now this is a little different process. We did have a blockbuster movie, and that constituent that they looked at was chromium-6. It was up in Hinckley, California.